light of your affirmation of the archetypal significance of the resurrection, you have expressed some ambivalence about its historical reality. J.R.R. Tolkien had long conversations in Oxford with C.S. Lewis, in which Tolkien helped Lewis to understand that the story of Christ was the first archetypal myth that is not just true in a mythopoetic and psychological sense, but also true in the historical sense. That insight, helped by the grace of God, pushed Lewis over and he became a Christian. Where are you in this discernment process on the historical nature of Christ, and especially the resurrection?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Like, I do believe that there are places where the mythological and the literal touch. Mm-hmm. I mentioned one of those earlier, the idea that spoken truth, logos, creates habitable order out of chaos. I think that is literally and metaphorically true. I don't think you can state the nature of being and the role that consciousness plays in it more accurately than that. And so it's metaphysically true, it's religiously true, and it's literally true all at the same time. And so there are times when that happens, and I don't know. See, this is the mystery to me, I would say. I understand what that means. I understand that there are times when the literal and the metaphysical or religious co-occur. And I can understand
so that the literal is the foundation upon which the symbolic or the psychological...
Yeah, it's like the way I've been conceptualizing it is it's as if the material reaches up towards the spiritual and the spiritual reaches down towards the material, and now and then they touch. And that's a miracle when that happens. Mm-hmm. It's a miracle when that happens. And I do think that happens. With regards to the resurrection, apart from saying what I just said, I would say that I need to think about that for about 3 more years before I would even venture an answer beyond what I've already given. Because there's very much there that I don't understand as well as I need to understand. Part of the reason, I did a biblical series last year, and I got through Genesis. I thought I would get farther than that, but that isn't what happened. And I'm going to do Exodus next, and I'm going to walk through the biblical stories. And I hope I can get through all of them, although I don't know if I'll live long enough to do that. But I want to spend the same amount of energy on the story of the Christian passion as I have with those other lectures to investigate exactly this sort of thing. Because I know there's way more to that story that is available for analysis that I don't understand. Now, I understand what it means symbolically. I understand what the dying and resurrecting God means. It means something like you pick up your cross, you voluntarily accept your suffering, you open yourself humbly to the correction of the world. Parts of you continually die as a consequence. All the parts of you that need to be updated by exposure to truth and wisdom. And it's painful. You have to identify with the part of you that can be reborn continually through those micro deaths. Okay, so that's the archetypal pattern. Well, the Christian claim is there's something going on that transcends that mere archetypal pattern, or that it manifested itself in reality ultimately once. You know, and that was a claim that Carl Jung was actually quite, what would you say, sympathetic to. But I don't know enough about it to say anything more than what I've said psychologically. And so I want to know more about it. The thing is the deeper you go into biology, the more it shades into something that appears to be religious, because you start analyzing the fundamental structure of the psyche itself. And it becomes something, well, it becomes something with a power that transcends your ability to resist it. So, okay, so you can think about Christ from a psychological perspective, and the critic, my critic, this particular critic that I've been reading, said, well, that doesn't differentiate Christ much from a whole sequence of dying and resurrecting mythological gods. And of course, people have made that claim in comparative religion. Joseph Campbell did that, and Jung to a lesser degree, I would say, but Campbell did that. But the difference, and C.S. Lewis pointed this out as well, the difference between those mythological gods and Christ was that there's a historical representation of his of his existence as well. Now, you can debate whether or not that's genuine. You can debate about whether or not he actually lived and whether there's credible objective evidence for that, but it doesn't matter in some sense because this, well, it does, but there's a sense in which it doesn't matter because there's still a historical story. And so what you have in the figure of Christ is an actual person who actually lived plus a myth. And in some sense, Christ is the union of those two things. The problem is I probably believe that, but I don't know. I'm amazed at my own belief and I don't understand it. Like, because I've seen sometimes the objective world and the narrative world touch. You know, that's Jungian synchronicity. Yeah. And I've seen that many times in my own life. And so in some sense, I believe it's undeniable. You know, we have a narrative sense of the world. For me, that's been the world of morality. That's the world that tells us how to act. It's real. Like, we treat it like it's real. It's not the objective world. But the narrative and the objective world touch. And the ultimate example of that, in principle, is supposed to be Christ. But I don't know what to... that seems to me oddly plausible.
Yeah.
But I still don't know what to make of it. It's too... partly because it's too terrifying a reality to fully believe. I don't even know what would happen to you if you fully believed it.
If you believed in the story of Christ, or if you believed that history and let's say the narrative meet, let's
both,
say.
I think you... Because when you believe that, you buy both those stories. You believe that the narrative and the objective can actually touch.